Shall we take a look at some of the front pages today? We'll begin with the Metro. Most are dominated by this growing revolt against the government's coronavirus restrictions. But the Metro is describing the Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham as number 10's nightmare.
A Telegraph reporting the Prime Minister is under pressure to call a national lockdown, not just from Labour but also scientists and the NHS, while some Conservative MPs have attacked the stricter rules in London.
The Times leads with something completely different, an investigation into what it calls a Russian disinformation campaign designed to spread fear about the Oxford University coronavirus vaccine. The paper says it isn't clear if the propaganda was directly authorised by the Kremlin, but it claims that there is evidence that some Russian officials were involved.
And New York Times reflects on the different approaches of President Trump and his Democratic rival Joe Biden in their televised town hall interviews last night. It says Mr. Trump was combative and defensive, in stark contrast to a more measured Mr. Biden. What have you got? I'm
focusing on Finland today.
Okay.
Two very different stories. One that I think if you're on social media, you would have kind of seen, and I'm just going to explain what this row's about. So this is a picture of Sanna Marin, who is Finland's Prime Minister. She's 34 years old. When she came into power in December, she was the world's youngest national leader. That was last December. And she put 3 other women in her cabinet. She's been very vocal about women's rights. Anyway, she's been photographed in a magazine. And there has been a lot of criticism about what she's wearing. And it's brought about the discussion about if a man were photographed a leader. I mean, you remember pictures of Putin with his chest bared, and there have been criticisms from. And
so the picture you're showing us there is
this is the picture.
Is the picture which has caused the row?
Yeah. So a couple of MPs from the right have criticised her. To Conservative MPs, they were criticising the fact that she was on, saying it was inappropriate, and she's just come back. And there has been this hashtag I'm with Sanna, basically just supporting her right to wear whatever she wants. And it's brilliant. Some of the pictures with people posting pictures of themselves with, blazers and stuff, including a gentleman there with a necklace and a blazer, chest bared. Good for them. Lots of support. The other Finnish themed story I had was, do you like aeroplane food? Do you remember those days when you did actually travel by plane?
Well, depending. If you're sufficiently hungry, yes.
So you'd only eat it if you were very hungry?
Normally, yeah.
Yeah, OK. So you're not a big fan. So in Finland, Finnair has a range of meals. So it's launched them to the public. So they're now on sale in supermarkets. This little story here in the Telegraph.
What's a dish?
So you are looking at reindeer meatballs and Arctic char. So since so many of their kitchen staff have been laid off, they're trying to create more jobs, and they're putting them in the supermarkets.
Have you finished? Because I'm going to pick up with the story about have you put the kettle on, is the question that everyone's saying this time of day. What is it? It's 10 to 7, isn't it? 10 to 7, is that right?
No, it's 22 minutes past 6.
It's 22 minutes past 6 this time, and someone's going to be saying in your house, have you put the kettle on? Yes.
Someone's going to be saying in their house, it's 10 to 7, we're late. It's 23 minutes past 6.
So, if you put the kettle on, how much water did you put on it? Because this story is all about people who overfill their kettles by a lot. So you're making one cup of tea and you put in way too much water.
Oh.
1 in 4 tea lovers don't know how much water is required for a mug of tea. Usually, if you want the details here, 350 millilitres. And about 1 in 4 tea lovers overfill the kettle because they worry the tea water will end up lime-scaly. So you put quite a lot in because you think the stuff down the bottom isn't going to be very nice.
But also, if you put just the amount of, say, a mug of tea, water in the kettle, some of it evaporates when it boils. So you have to put in more. I'm not saying fill the kettle up for 1 cup of tea, but you always do overfill, and especially if you live in an area where there is limescale, you're not always diligent.
If you fill the kettle very full, does it make more noise?
Well, it bubbles over. You've got to be careful.
So there you go. Now you know. Don't fill the kettle too full if you're doing that.
You were talking about tea. We're talking about how much water to put into the kettle. Always gets people talking. Already Janie's been in touch. Morning, Janie. So Janie must love her tea because she actually keeps water in the kettle just in case her water goes off during the day and she needs a cup of tea.
Well, who doesn't keep water in the kettle?
There's your question for the morning.
Well, who has an empty kettle?
I would have an empty kettle.
Completely empty?
Well, I'd pour the water out if I haven't used it for a while. And then why put any water back in? Because it would be wasting the water.
And if you want to see how the rules in your area apply to you, you can search by postcode on our website. The owner of a venue in West London could face a fine of up to £10,000 after police broke up a wedding reception with more than 100 guests. Body-worn camera footage from the Met shows guests being led from the Tudor Rose in Southall on Tuesday evening. Only 15 guests are currently allowed at weddings under coronavirus restrictions. Medical researchers in the capital say COVID test results could be speeded up if labs assess them in batches. The advice comes from academics at the University College London and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. They say evaluating samples in batches rather than individually and then retesting only the groups that come up positive means fewer tests overall would be needed.